In this podcast episode, renowned evolutionary biologist Richard Dawkins joins Chris Williamson to explore a range of thought-provoking topics, including the rise of cultural Christianity, the implications of declining traditional beliefs, the biological basis of sex and race, and the complexities of consciousness and behavioral genetics. Dawkins also shares insights on ethical considerations surrounding genetic manipulation and his upcoming project focused on Ernst Haeckel's work. Dawkins begins by delving into the phenomenon of cultural Christianity, where individuals identify with Christian traditions and values due to their upbringing, despite lacking genuine religious beliefs. He notes that this trend is particularly evident among younger generations who are drawn to practices like the Latin Mass, often influenced by figures such as Jordan Peterson and Andrew Tate. He critiques the allure of these ceremonies, suggesting that their complexity can protect them from rational examination. Dawkins views this resurgence as a potential reaction to the decline of traditional religious belief, emphasizing his commitment to truth over societal trends. As traditional religious frameworks wane, Dawkins discusses the resulting impact on individual worldviews. He argues that the erosion of established sources of meaning creates a vacuum that many struggle to fill. He finds it demeaning to imply that humanity needs religion as a crutch for meaning, advocating instead for the importance of rationality and the ability to derive meaning from secular sources. The conversation acknowledges a psychological tendency to seek narratives, especially during chaotic times, which can lead to the formation of new belief systems. Dawkins explores the anthropological perspective that religion is a universal phenomenon across cultures. He posits that humans have an inherent inclination to seek explanations for life's complexities, often resorting to supernatural beliefs in the absence of scientific understanding. This tendency, he argues, is rooted in historical contexts where early humans faced perilous environments, leading them to attribute agency to natural phenomena. Dawkins suggests that this psychological need for agency and explanation is a fundamental driver behind the emergence of religious beliefs worldwide. Shifting the conversation to biological sex, Dawkins asserts that sex is fundamentally binary, contrasting it with the more nuanced discussions surrounding gender identity. He explains that the distinction between male and female is based on gamete size, large eggs versus small sperm, across the animal kingdom. While acknowledging the existence of rare intersex conditions, he argues that these do not undermine the overall binary classification of biological sex. He emphasizes that this binary nature is consistent and observable in various species, reinforcing his stance against the notion of a spectrum in biological sex. Dawkins addresses the concept of race, suggesting that while there is a spectrum of physical traits within human populations, the biological basis for race is not as clear-cut as some might argue. He explains that the blending of traits observed in mixed-race individuals can be attributed to polygenic inheritance, where multiple genes contribute to a trait. Dawkins contends that the concept of race is more of a social construct than a strict biological classification. He critiques the idea of transracial identity, noting the societal backlash against individuals who claim to identify as a different race. The podcast also touches on the idea that the decline of traditional religious beliefs may lead individuals to seek meaning in social justice movements. Dawkins acknowledges that some perceive a connection between the rise of identity politics and the waning of religiosity. However, he expresses skepticism about the notion that social justice can serve as a meaningful substitute for religion. While people may seek new frameworks for understanding their place in the world, he emphasizes the importance of maintaining a critical perspective on all belief systems, including those that arise in the context of social justice. In a lighter segment, Dawkins shares insights into Charles Darwin's considerations regarding marriage. He presents Darwin's pros and cons list, which reflects his ambivalence about the institution. The list highlights a tension between the desire for companionship and the perceived loss of freedom and time that marriage entails. Dawkins finds humor in Darwin's candid reflections, noting how societal expectations around marriage have evolved over time. This discussion illustrates the complexities of human relationships and the changing dynamics of marriage in contemporary society. Dawkins emphasizes the importance of understanding evolution as a well-supported scientific theory. He acknowledges the existence of skepticism, particularly among those who may not fully grasp the evidence supporting evolution. He encourages skeptics to engage with the extensive fossil records and genetic data that illustrate the gradual transition from primates to humans. He highlights the significance of the fossil record, especially from Africa, in countering the notion of a missing link and showcasing the well-documented evolutionary lineage from early hominins to modern humans. Dawkins notes that Darwin predicted Africa as the origin of human evolution due to the similarities between humans and African apes, such as chimpanzees and gorillas. He mentions the rich fossil record found in East and South Africa, which has revealed many ancestral human species, including Australopithecus. He expresses fascination with Australopithecus, describing them as upright walking beings with brain sizes comparable to chimpanzees. He also touches on the existence of other Homo species, such as Homo erectus, which lived alongside early humans, highlighting the complexity of human evolution. When discussing consciousness, Dawkins admits that he does not have a definitive answer to the hard problem of consciousness, which refers to the challenge of explaining how subjective experiences arise from brain activity. He acknowledges that consciousness is a biological problem linked to the complexity of the brain and its neural connections. Dawkins expresses skepticism about the contributions of philosophers to the understanding of consciousness, indicating that a biological perspective is crucial. While consciousness is difficult to define, he suggests it is likely related to brain function and evolution. Dawkins addresses the field of behavioral genetics, which studies the heritability of behavioral traits. He notes that while this area of research is flourishing, it faces significant pushback, often due to fears of eugenics and the implications of genetic determinism. He points out that some people cling to the idea of a blank slate, believing that human behavior is entirely shaped by environment rather than genetics. He argues that this perspective is inconsistent, as people readily accept the heritability of traits in other species. He advocates for a more open-minded approach to understanding the genetic basis of human behavior. Dawkins discusses the ethical implications of gene embryo selection and genetic manipulation. He supports the use of in vitro fertilization to select embryos that do not carry genetic diseases, such as hemophilia, viewing it as a responsible use of technology to prevent suffering. However, he acknowledges that the conversation becomes more controversial when discussing the selection of traits like intelligence or physical ability. Dawkins believes that the voluntary nature of such choices, as opposed to government-mandated eugenics, should be considered in ethical discussions. He also highlights the potential for genetic technologies to become more accessible over time, which could mitigate concerns about inequality. Dawkins shares his current project, which involves writing a new book titled Tales from Haeckel, focusing on the work of Ernst Haeckel, a German biologist and artist. He plans to use Haeckel's illustrations to explore various biological concepts, showcasing the intersection of art and science. He expresses enthusiasm for this project and indicates that he is committed to continuing his work in popularizing evolutionary biology and addressing contemporary scientific issues.